Well, after 4 years of investigation, special counsel John Durham with the Department of Justice releasing his long-awaited report, cost millions of dollars, took 4 years almost to the date, and it says essentially that the FBI had very little predication on investigating allegations of Trump-Russia collusion ahead of the 2016 presidential election. Good morning, Springfield's Morning News. I'm Greg Bishop. Would love to hear from you on this story at 217-629-7970. Is the former president exonerated in this finally? Let's hear from you. All right, 217-629-7970. So if you recall, President Trump came down that golden escalator and announced that he was going to run for president and then won in 2016. But when he took office, he said on Twitter, the FBI spied on his campaign. And then it was revealed that indeed they had a FISA warrant during his campaign, and even used that warrant, which allows for the intelligence community to essentially go after and monitor the communications of people. And it led to one campaign staffer being monitored, which when they do that, they can then go into the circle of people around him and monitor all those communications. So this was obviously a pretty contentious thing that happened in the United States. And if you recall, even Chuck Schumer, the Democrat senator from New York, he made this statement after the Trump Twitter that was critical of the intelligence community. This was a statement that Chuck Schumer made to MSNBC back in 2016, right after Trump was critical of the intelligence community, and it was pretty telling. Here's Chuck Schumer.
You take on the intelligence community, they have 6 ways from Sunday at getting back at you. So even for a practical, supposedly hard-nosed businessman, he's being really dumb to do this.
What do you think the intelligence community would do if they were motivated?
I don't know, but from what I am told, they are very upset with how he has treated them and talked about them. And we need the intelligence community. We don't know what's going on. Look at the Russian hacking. Without the intelligence community, we wouldn't have discovered it.
Do you think he has an agenda to try to dismantle parts of the intelligence community? I mean, this form of taunting hostility.
Whether you're a super liberal Democrat or a very conservative Republican, you should be against dismantling the intelligence community.
So again, that's Chuck Schumer talking about how the intelligence community, if you go after them, they've got 6 ways from Sunday to go after you. Would love to hear your thoughts. Again, 217-629-7970. That's the phone number. Let's go ahead and head to the phone lines before we review some of the executive summary from the Durham Report that essentially said there was no predication for the intelligence community to go after former President Donald Trump's campaign and the first few months of his administration. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Greg, of course I think it exonerates him, but of course, as my liberal cousin called me and said, well, there was nothing there. There was nothing there to see. And I say, yeah, maybe you're right, but I really believe you're wrong. And, everybody thinks this means nothing. Well, we don't know what it means, and I think there's more to come. And I hope they remove these people, because what's going on in our country right now, these people are evil. This is pure evil. When you let people pour across the border like they are, won't let Rafael Nadal play tennis because he's not vaccinated. You can't see what's going on here. In my book, you're pretty doggone dumb.
Well, I think it was Dashenko, or if some, I can't remember the tennis player's name, but either, yeah, okay, I got you down, 217-629-7970. Let's go to the phones again. Here we go. Good morning. You're on WMAY. You're on the air. Go ahead. Going once, going twice. All right, so let's go ahead and take a look at this executive summary, and we'll take more phone calls as they come in. Again, 217-629-7970 is the phone number. But the executive summary from the Durham Report, we'll just read some of this. It's, again, the report is like 316 pages long. So we're not going to read all of it, but we'll get to a good chunk of it here from the executive summary, where it says the public record contains a substantial body of information relating to former President Trump's and the Trump organization's relationship with Russian businesses, Russian business people, and Russian officials, as well as all separate evidence of Russia's attempts to interfere in the 2016 presidential election. These and related subjects are well documented in the careful examination undertaken in the department's Office of Inspector General of issues related to the FBI's Crossfire Hurricane investigation and its use of Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Act authorities. Former FBI Director Robert Mueller, as detailed in his report entitled Report on the Investigation into Russian Interference into the 2016 Presidential Election, issued March 2019, and the Senate Select Committee on Intelligence entitled Russian Active Measures, Campaigns, and Interference in the 2016 U.S. Election. The scope of these early inquiries, the amount of important information gathered, and the contributions they have made to our understanding of Russian election interference efforts are a tribute to the diligent work and dedication of those charged with the responsibility of conducting them. Our review and the investigation, in turn, has focused on separate but related questions, including the following. Was there adequate predication for the FBI to open the Crossfire Hurricane investigation from its inception on July 31st, 2016, as a full counterintelligence and foreign agents Registration Act investigation, given the requirements, the Attorney General's guidelines for FBI domestic operations, and FBI policies relating to the use of at least the intrusive investigative tools necessary? Was the opening of Crossfire Hurricane as a full investigation consistent with how the FBI handled other intelligence that it had received prior to July 31st, 2016, concerning attempts by foreign interests to influence the Clinton and other campaigns? Similarly, did the FBI properly consider other highly significant intelligence it received at virtually the same time as the used of the predicate for Crossfire Hurricane, but which related to not the Trump campaign, but rather a purported Clinton campaign plan to, quote, vilify Donald Trump by stirring up scandals claiming interference by Russian security services, which might have shed light on some of the Russian information the FBI and confidential human source reporting? If not, were any provable federal crimes committed in failing to do so? Was there evidence that the actions of any FBI personnel or third parties relating to Crossfire Hurricane investigation violated any federal criminal statutes, including the prohibition against making false statements to federal officials? If so, was the evidence sufficient to prove guilt beyond a reasonable doubt? And was there evidence that the actions of the FBI or the department's personnel in providing false or incomplete information to the Foreign Intelligence Surveillance Court violates any federal criminal statutes? If so, was there evidence sufficient to prove guilty beyond a reasonable doubt? So, that's a little bit of the overview of what they were looking at. And of course, we'll get your calls at 217-629-7970. And we'll scroll through here to get to the conclusion of the executive summary, after it delves into a whole host of different ins and outs of the Crossfire Hurricane investigation. They say in their executive summary conclusions, based on the review of Crossfire Hurricane and related intelligence activities, we conclude the department and the FBI failed to uphold their important mission of strict fidelity to the law in connection with certain events and activities described in this report. As noted, former FBI attorney Kevin Kleinsmith committed a federal offense by fabricating language in an email that was material to the FBI obtaining a FISA surveillance order. In other instances, FBI personnel working on the same FISA application displayed at best a cavalier attitude toward accuracy and completeness. FBI personnel also repeatedly disregarded important requirements when they continued to seek renewals of the FISA surveillance, while acknowledging both then and in hindsight that they did not genuinely believe that there was probable cause to believe that the target was knowingly engaged in clandestine intelligence activities on behalf of a foreign power or knowingly helping another person in such activities. And certain personnel disregarded significant exculpatory information, that's evidence that proves someone's innocence, that should have prompted investigative restraint and re-examination. Our investigation also revealed that senior FBI personnel displayed a serious lack of analytical rigor toward the information that they received, especially information received from politically affiliated persons and entities. The Durham Report continues, says this information is part triggered and sustained Crossfire Hurricane and contributed to the subsequent need for special counsel Mueller's investigation. In particular, there was significant reliance on investigative leads provided or funded directly or indirectly by Trump's political opponents. The department did not adequately examine or question these materials and the motivations of those providing them, even when, at about the same time, the director of the FBI and others learned of significant and potential contrary intelligence. In light of the foregoing, there's a continuing need for the FBI and the department to recognize the lack of analytical rigor, apparent confirmation bias, and over-willingness to rely on information from individuals connected to political opponents caused investigators to fail to adequately consider alternative hypotheses and to act without appropriate objectivity or restraint in pursuing allegations of collusion or conspiracy between a U.S. political campaign and a foreign power. Although recognizing that in hindsight much is clearer, much of this also seems to have been clear at the time. We therefore believe it's important to examine past conduct in identifying shortcomings and improve how the government carries out its most sensitive functions. So that's just some of the executive summary conclusion that was provided. Let's get to your phone calls at 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Yeah, they definitely ends justify the means. They knew this was all going to be like this. Certain people didn't look at certain stuff so they could do what they did, and they got what they wanted. And it'll continue to happen as time goes on. But what about the fact that Joe Biden spoke at Howard University? I mean, he was basically wrapped in a white cloth and told everybody that the biggest fear was white supremacy. And he's an 80-year-old white guy that gave a eulogy at a former KKK member's funeral.
Yeah, and there was a student who had written on his graduation cap at that event that the Biden administration lies to black people. So, I mean, you know, I guess the president's acknowledging that the greatest threat isn't Trump-Russia collusion. So at least he's acknowledging that. 217-629-7970. Good morning. You're on WMAY.
Good morning, Greg. You know, I'm curious, seeing how these lawsuits where if you say, no, that never happened, you can get $5 million or so, defamation lawsuits. I wonder if any of these people that were, subjected to this travesty of justice can sue the government. I mean, that could be quite a lawsuit, I think. I'm not sure if it's possible, but
think about it. You had Carter Page was the one that was the subject of the initial FISA warrant, and you had George Papadopoulos, somebody else who was targeted in all of this. You got Paul Manafort, you got even Rudy Giuliani, not to mention Donald Trump, and how for years of his administration, you had most of the corporate press echoing these allegations over and over and over again. Have they issued any retractions? Has CNN, MSNBC, ABC, NBC, CBS, even Fox News, have they issued any retractions now that we have a nonpartisan report coming out after 4 years of investigation saying that the FBI had predetermined conclusions, had confirmation bias, and didn't go about this in the proper way?
All they've done so far is silence the one man that would bring this to light is Tucker Carlson. That's why he was such an enemy to all these fools.
I got you down. 217-629-7970. Take one more call here. We're late for a break, though. Good morning. You're on WMAY. You're on the air. Good morning. Going once, going twice, and that's all we've got for this segment. Stay tuned. Much more coming up here on WMAY.